crystalline towers of Zithara shimmered under the refracted light of its binary suns, casting a kaleidoscope of colors across the vast concourse where the games were set to take place. It was a spectacle that both awed and intimidated the human delegation. Amara Hayes adjusted the strap of her bag, her fingers brushing over the wooden tiles of the board game inside. Around her, the alien delegates moved with an otherworldly grace, each species embodying a blend of organic ingenuity and technological sophistication that made her feel like a mere primitive in comparison. Her companions, Jackson Miller and Lisa Park, weren't faring much better. Jackson, with his tweed jacket looking hilariously out of place, was trying to remain calm by muttering historical anecdotes under his breath. Lisa, on the other hand, was busy analyzing the movements of their competitors, her sharp eyes darting between the insectoid Zythari, the luminous energy beings of the Ankari, and the towering biomechanical Talaxar. She tapped Amara on the shoulder. "Do you see that?" Lisa whispered, gesturing discreetly toward a group of gelatinous beings whose forms shifted like liquid mercury. "They're not even walking, they're gliding. I think they're telekinetically manipulating their molecular structures." Omera sighed. "Lisa, everything here defies physics as we know it. Just try to focus." Jackson chimed in, his voice carrying a nervous lilt. "Focus on what, exactly?" "We're representing Earth in what's supposed to be the galaxy's most prestigious intellectual competition, and all we have is a board game that hasn't seen a mainstream tournament since the 1980s. "It's not just a board game," Amara said, her voice carrying a quiet determination. "It's about pattern recognition, strategy, and adaptability. Trust me, simplicity can be a strength." As they approached the central arena, a being resembling a living obelisk extended a crystalline appendage to greet them. Its voice resonated directly in their minds, bypassing any need for translation. "Welcome, humans of Earth. I am Overseer Exel of the Concordia Games. Your designated match will commence shortly." The humans exchanged glances before Amara stepped forward. "We're ready," she said, even though her stomach churned with doubt. The arena was unlike anything they had ever seen. A massive platform floated in midair, its surface constantly shifting to form complex geometries and glowing pathways. The alien audience surrounded them on all sides, their forms blending into the iridescent mist that filled the air. In the center of the platform, a table materialized, its surface flat and unassuming. It was the only static element in a world of flux. Amara placed the wooden board on it with deliberate care, eliciting a ripple of confusion from the spectators. "What is this?" a voice boomed telepathically. It belonged to Vo-7, the Ankari delegate, whose shimmering orb-like form pulsed with iridescent light. "This child's plaything is your tool of competition?" Amara forced a smile. "It's called Hexagon Conquest. Simple rules, but it demands complex thinking. Shall we begin?" Vo-7 emitted a sound that could have been laughter or derision. "Very well, human. Your terms are accepted." As they sat across from each other, Amara began placing tiles on the board. Each tile depicted a different terrain. Mountains, forests, plains, interspersed with resource markers. Vo-7 observed in silence before mimicking her actions, its energy tendrils deftly arranging the tiles with an almost mechanical precision. The game's pace started slow, each player building their territories and amassing resources. The Ankari strategy was meticulous and calculated, every move optimized for maximum efficiency. Amara played differently. Her placement seemed almost haphazard, as if she were making decisions on a whim. Lisa leaned closer, whispering urgently, "What are you doing? You're giving up key positions." Now that the map had settled into place, "Patience," Amara replied, her voice calm. "They don't see the bigger picture yet." By the midway point, it appeared that Vo-7 had gained a decisive advantage. Its tiles formed an impenetrable wall of interconnected terrains, while Amara's side looked fragmented and chaotic. The alien audience began emitting subtle vibrations, a universal expression of amusement. Even Jackson seemed ready to throw in the towel. But then, Amara made her move. She placed a single mountain tile that bridged several disconnected clusters on her side of the board. The effect was immediate and devastating. By exploiting a little-known rule about adjacency bonuses, she activated a chain reaction that doubled her resources and unleashed a series of attacks that shattered Vo7's carefully constructed defenses. The Ankari delegate pulsed with visible confusion, its tendrils flickering erratically. This is not possible," Vo7 exclaimed, its telepathic voice tinged with disbelief. "You were losing." The Count shrugged and won. "You were focused on the obvious," Amara said, leaning back in her chair. "But this game isn't just about what's in front of you. It's about what's hidden in plain sight." The arena fell silent. The humans had won the first round. The victory was as much a shock to Amara's team as it was to the alien spectators. As they left the platform, Overseer Exalt approached them, its crystalline form glowing with a faint green light. "An impressive performance," it said, its telepathic tone laced with curiosity. "Few have outmaneuvered the Ankari in such a decisive manner." "Thanks," Amara said, trying to sound nonchalant. "It's just a game." "Is it?" Xylth replied, its voice lingering in their minds. "We shall see." The second match took place only hours later, against the Talaxar. Unlike the contemplative Ankari, the Talaxar were aggressive and unyielding, their biomechanical forms bristling with weaponry and glowing with a fiery red light. Their delegate, General Exrath, was an imposing figure, standing nearly twice the height of any human. It radiated an aura of sheer intimidation, its mechanical limbs clicking ominously as it approached the table. "This will be swift," X-Ray declared, its voice like grinding metal. "Your primitive tactics will not suffice." The game began, and the Talaxar strategy was immediately apparent. X-Wraith played with ruthless efficiency, expanding its territory with rapid precision and overwhelming Amara's positions with sheer force. The alien crowd roared in approval, their confidence in the Talaxar's dominance palpable. Amara, however, remained unfazed. She allowed Exrath to claim territory after territory, seemingly conceding the board without resistance. Jackson and Lisa looked at her in alarm, but she held up a hand to silence them. "Trust me," she said softly. When the board was nearly 3/4 under Talaxar control, Amara made her move. She sacrificed several key pieces to create a barren zone in the center of the board. Exrath, sensing an opportunity, eagerly claimed it. Only then did it realize its mistake. The barren zone acted as a resource sink, draining Exrath's reserves and leaving its territories vulnerable. Amara quickly capitalized, launching a series of counterattacks that dismantled the Talaxar Empire piece by piece. The crowd's cheers turned to stunned silence as the final tile was placed, signaling another human victory. General Exrath stared at the board, its mechanical eyes flickering as it struggled to process what had just happened. This defies logic," it said, its voice a low growl. "Your methods are unorthodox, illogical, dangerous." "Sometimes," Amara said, rising from her chair, "logic isn't enough." As they exited the arena, the whispers among the alien delegates grew louder. The humans had defeated not one but two of the galaxy's most formidable opponents. Their simple board game, once mocked as primitive, was now viewed with a mixture of awe and fear. What else, the delegates wondered, were these humans capable of? Amara glanced at her teammates and smiled. They were only just getting started. The silence of the arena after their second victory was unlike anything Amara had experienced. It was a vacuum of disbelief, as if the alien delegates and the audience had been collectively stunned into an existential crisis. The Talaxar, beings of overwhelming power and ruthless efficiency, had been outmaneuvered in a game they barely understood. Amara could feel their confusion radiating in waves, their thoughts clashing as they struggled to process how such a primitive-seeming species could so thoroughly dismantle their strategies. Close quote. The humans left the arena without any applause or acknowledgement, but the silence itself felt louder than any ovation. Amara walked with a determined stride, the wooden board game tucked under her arm like a prized artifact. Lisa and Jackson trailed behind her, still whispering in hushed voices, their words tinged with disbelief and growing excitement. "Did you see X-Ray's face when you pulled that last move?" Jackson said, his hands gesturing animatedly. "I swear, if machines could feel, that one would have had a nervous breakdown." Lisa chuckled, but quickly shifted to her more analytical tone. "It wasn't just the Baron's own trap. The way you anticipated their aggressiveness, baiting them into overextending, that wasn't just strategy, that was psychological warfare." Mara didn't respond immediately, her thoughts racing ahead of their conversation. The stakes had become clearer with every match. This wasn't just about winning a game anymore. The Concordia Games were more than a mere tournament. They were a test of capability, a measure of a civilization's ability to contribute to or disrupt galactic order. Winning here wasn't just a matter of pride. It was a declaration of humanity's potential. As they reached the staging area reserved for competitors, a shimmering hologram of Overseer X self materialized before them. The crystalline Overseer's expressionless form flickered slightly as it addressed them. "Humans of Earth, your victories have sparked much discussion among the delegates. It appears you possess a unique approach to strategy. The Council has decided to accelerate your schedule. Your next match will take place in 1 standard hour." Amara frowned, glancing at her team. "Why the rush?" "The Council believes your methods warrant further evaluation," Zilt replied, its voice devoid of emotion. "Your opponent will be the Yeltrians." Lisa's brow furrowed. "The Yeltrians? I've read about them. Aren't they known for their mental synchronization, like a biological quantum computer?" "Correct," Zilt confirmed. "The Yeltrians have never been defeated in a contest of strategic depth. Prepare yourselves accordingly." The hologram vanished, leaving the humans alone in the dimly lit staging area. Jackson let out a low whistle. "A quantum brain species? Great. Just what we needed." Amara set the board down on the table in front of them and began arranging the tiles. Her movements were deliberate, but her expression betrayed the tension she was trying to suppress. "We'll stick to what works," she said firmly. "No overthinking, no trying to match them on their terms. If we play into their strengths, we lose." Lisa leaned over the board, studying it with a critical eye. "They'll see through basic strategies in seconds. We'll need to layer our moves, make them think they're in control while setting up traps they can't predict." "That's the plan," Amara said. She looked at Jackson. "And you? What do you think?" Jackson scratched his chin, his academic demeanor kicking in. "The Yeltrians are hive-minded, right? Their strength is in perfect coordination, but that might also be their weakness. If they're used to unanimous thinking, they might struggle to adapt to unpredictability or ambiguity." Amara nodded. "Then we'll give them ambiguity." The hour passed quickly, and soon they were back in the arena. The atmosphere had changed, the audience was larger, the air thicker with tension. Word of the humans' victories had spread, and now every delegate wanted to witness the anomaly for themselves. The arena's shifting platform stabilized into a configuration that resembled a vast star field, its glowing tiles pulsing in rhythmic patterns. At its center stood their opponents, the Yeltrians. They were unlike any species Amara had seen. Tall and slender, their translucent bodies shimmered with internal light, as if their veins carried liquid starlight. Their eyes glowed with an unsettling intensity, and their movements were eerily synchronized, as though controlled by a single mind. The lead Yeltrin stepped forward, its voice echoing directly in their minds. "Humans, you are intriguing. Your victories are anomalies, and anomalies must be understood." Amara met its gaze without flinching. "Then let's get started." The game began, and immediately the Yeltrians revealed their strength. Their movements were impossibly fast, their hands a blur as they placed tiles with precision that bordered on mechanical. They constructed intricate patterns that seemed to defy logic, creating territories that were not only efficient but almost beautiful in their complexity. Amara countered with deliberate slowness, her moves seeming random and unfocused. She placed tiles in seemingly inconsequential positions, allowing the Yeltrians to dominate the board. The audience began to murmur, their telepathic conversations rippling through the arena like a low hum. Even Lisa and Jackson exchanged worried glances, but they trusted Amara enough to stay silent. Halfway through the game, it appeared that the Yeltrians had already won. Their territory spanned nearly the entire board, their tiles forming an intricate web of interconnected zones that seemed unassailable. The lead Yeltrian leaned forward, its glowing eyes narrowing, as it addressed Amara. "Is this all your species can offer? Randomness? Chaos?" Amara smirked. "You think chaos is random? Let's see how well you handle this." With a series of rapid moves, she began placing tiles that disrupted the Yeltrian network. Her actions seemed small at first, insignificant in the grand scheme of the board, but their impact was immediate and profound. By targeting key connections in the Yeltrian web, she created cascading vulnerabilities that began to unravel their strategy. The Yeltrians, for all their synchronized brilliance, struggled to adapt. Their hive mind coordination, once their greatest strength, now became a liability as they failed to account for the unpredictability of Amara's tactics. The audience watched in stunned silence as the humans turned the tide. With each move, Amara tightened her grip on the board, her strategy unfolding like a masterstroke of improvisational genius. The Yeltrians faltered, their perfect synchronization breaking down as they attempted to counter her moves. By the final turn, it was over. The humans had won again. The arena erupted in chaos. Not applause, but a cacophony of telepathic voices as the delegates reacted to the impossible. The Yeltrians, unbeaten for centuries, had been defeated by a species playing a wooden board game. Amara leaned back in her chair, exhaling deeply. She looked at the lead Yeltrian, whose glowing eyes now dimmed with what could only be described as bewilderment. "Chaos isn't random," she said softly. "It's just a pattern you don't understand yet." As they left the arena, the whispers among the delegates grew louder. Some called the humans geniuses, others accused them of trickery. But one thing was clear: Earth was no longer an afterthought in the galactic community. They had become a force to be reckoned with. Amara glanced at her teammates, a small smile playing on her lips. "3 down," she said. "Let's see who's next." The crystalline corridors of Zithara's grand arena seemed to stretch endlessly, their mirrored surfaces reflecting the humans' tense expressions as they walked in silence. The air between them was charged, heavy with the knowledge of what their victories had wrought. Every step echoed like a drumbeat, a reminder that they were no longer underdogs. They were contenders now, and the weight of expectation pressed heavily on their shoulders. Amara led the way, her hand gripping the familiar wooden box containing the game that had inexplicably turned the galaxy's most powerful civilizations into uneasy spectators. Lisa walked beside her, clutching a datapad where she had begun cataloging patterns from their opponents' previous strategies. Jackson followed, his hands stuffed into his pockets, muttering half-finished thoughts about ancient battle tactics, as if they might help make sense of the cosmic whirlwind they had been caught in. They entered the preparation chamber, a stark and utilitarian space with glowing walls that pulsed faintly, mimicking a heartbeat. Amara placed the box on the central table and sat down, exhaling slowly. The room felt oppressive, the silence too loud, the stakes too high. "We're being watched," Lisa murmured, not looking up from her datapad. Her voice was clipped, precise, tinged with unease. "More closely than ever." Amara nodded. "I know." Jackson dropped into a chair with a heavy sigh. "It's not just the watching that's the problem, it's the whispers. I caught snippets on the way here. Half the delegates think we're some kind of sleeper threat. The other half think we're just lucky amateurs." Lisa glanced up. "Let them think that. Either one works to our advantage." "Does it?" Jackson shot back. "Because I'm pretty sure the next species they throw at us won't be looking to play nice. They're scared of us now. Fear makes people unpredictable." Amara leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table. Her gaze was steady, her voice calm, but there was a fire in her eyes. "Good. Let them be unpredictable. That's how we win." Before Jackson could respond, the room's walls shimmered, and Overseer X Zyle's holographic form appeared once again. Its crystalline structure flickered faintly, as if even its projected image carried the weight of the moment. "Humans of Earth," it said, its voice resonating in their minds. "The Council has reviewed your performance. Your next opponent has been selected." "Who is it this time?" Amara asked, her tone sharp, cutting through the tension like a blade. "The Craneath," X-Elf replied. "A species known for their unparalleled mastery of predictive modeling. They have spent millennia refining their ability to calculate outcomes, analyzing probabilities across countless variables with near-perfect accuracy. Be warned, they are relentless." Lisa's brow furrowed. "Predictive modeling? So they're like walking quantum supercomputers?" "Precisely," Xylith confirmed. "They will not underestimate you. Prepare yourselves." As the hologram faded, the room plunged back into silence. Amara sat motionless, her mind racing through potential strategies. Lisa broke the quiet first, her voice low and thoughtful. "They'll try to control the game from the start. If they're as good as Xylith says, they'll anticipate every move we make." "That's their weakness," Amara said, her tone resolute. "They rely on probabilities, on patterns they can predict. But we've beaten opponents who underestimated the power of unpredictability before. We can do it again." Jackson leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. "Easier said than done. If they're predicting hundreds of outcomes at once, they'll see through any strategy we try to layer." "Not if we don't follow any strategy at all," Amara countered. She began setting up the board, her hands moving with practiced precision. "We make moves they can't categorize, play against their expectations, force them to react instead of control." Lisa tilted her head, considering this. "Chaos again, then. But we'll need to make it more convincing this time. They'll expect some level of randomness." Amara nodded. "Then we give them randomness they can't make sense of." The announcement came sooner than they expected, and they found themselves once again walking into the arena. This time the atmosphere was electric. The stands were packed with delegates from nearly every species present on Zythera. The air buzzed with a cacophony of telepathic whispers and murmurs, the tension palpable. At the center of the arena, the Crinith awaited. They were unlike anything the humans had faced before. Their forms were fluid, shifting constantly between shapes, one moment humanoid, the next a swirl of geometric patterns. Their translucent skin shimmered with shifting colors, as if reflecting the probabilities they analyzed in real time. The lead Crinith stepped forward, its voice echoing directly into the humans' minds. "You have proven capable, but your victories are anomalies, statistical outliers that cannot persist. We will restore order." Amara met the alien's gaze, or what she assumed was its gaze. "We'll see about that." The game began, and the Crinith wasted no time asserting their dominance. Their moves were surgical, precise, each tile placement an elegant combination of offense and defense. Within minutes, they had seized control of a third of the board, their territories forming a perfect lattice of interconnected power. Amara responded with apparent carelessness, placing tiles in seemingly random positions. Her actions drew murmurs from the crowd and a faint flicker of derision from the Crinith, but she ignored the noise, her focus unwavering. She moved quickly, decisively, her strategy, or lack thereof, designed to confound. By the midpoint of the game, it was clear the Crinith were growing frustrated. Their predictive modeling faltered as Amara continued to make moves that defied logical patterns. The human side of the board looked disorganized, chaotic, but Amara could see the cracks beginning to form in the Crinith's strategy. Jackson leaned closer, whispering urgently, "They're shifting their focus. I think you've got them rattled." "Not yet," Amara muttered, "but we're getting there." With a series of rapid moves, she began targeting weak points in the Crinith's lattice. At first, the aliens seemed to recover, adapting their strategy to reinforce their positions. But as Amara continued her assault, their responses grew slower, more erratic. The lattice began to collapse. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the tide shifted. The Crinith, for all their predictive brilliance, struggled to keep up with the relentless unpredictability of Amara's moves. By the final turn, it was clear. The humans had won again. The lead Crinith froze, its form flickering as if its very essence had been destabilized. It stared at the board, the shifting colors of its skin dimming to a muted gray. "This outcome was not predicted," it said, its voice tinged with something that might have been disbelief. Amara stood, her expression calm but her eyes blazing with triumph. "Maybe you need to work on your probabilities." As the humans exited the arena, the atmosphere in the stands erupted into chaos. The whispers turned to shouts, telepathic exchanges overlapping in a cacophony of fear, awe, and speculation. Amara, Lisa, and Jackson walked in silence, the weight of their victory settling heavily on their shoulders. Back in the preparation chamber, they sat around the table, their exhaustion finally catching up with them. Lisa broke the silence, her voice quiet but firm. "We're not just playing a game anymore. They're starting to see us as a threat." "Good," Amara said, her tone resolute. "Let them. The more they fear us, the more they underestimate what we're really capable of." Jackson shook his head, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" Amara leaned back, a small, tired grin breaking through her usual composure. "Maybe a little. But this isn't just about us. It's about Earth. We have to prove that we belong here." They sat in silence for a moment longer, the gravity of their situation sinking in. Outside, the galaxy watched, waiting to see what the humans would do next.